I've had a lot of assholes on this show, but I don't think I've had one so far who is a self-proclaimed asshole. This week we have, for the first time on TechCrunch TV, a guy who calls himself an asshole and is very proud of it. His name is Tucker Max. He's a best-selling author, and his brand, indeed, I think, seems to be built on being an asshole. So, Tucker, welcome to TechCrunch TV, perhaps your ideal environment.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Andrew.
So the TechCrunch audience, there'll be a lot of people out there who've read some of your books, but I think they're going to be more interested in how you are blowing up the publishing industry. Your latest book, which has just come out as a paperback, is self-published. Is that right?
It's not exactly self-published. What I did was, there's kind of...
Name of the book first.
Name of the book's called Hilarity Ensues.
And everyone should read it, even if it's written by an asshole.
Not everyone. Some people won't like it. You should go to my website and read some of my stuff that's free and see if you like it, because it's not for everybody. But so there's kind of two basic ways people think of to publish. Either you go with a big six publisher and you kind of take, the crappy deal that everyone gets.
What do you mean crappy deal?
7.5% trade paper is not a good deal. That's shitty. Or you
can't just say that. You're on national television now. What does that mean, a shitty deal? They pay for everything. They buy the books, they do the marketing, they distribute. 7.5% isn't bad, is it?
No, it's not good at all. It's really not. For the services they provide, especially in 2012, I think,
What would be a right number then? What should you get?
I'll explain how I get to it, but I take 89% of net receipts now. I tripled my royalty.
So you'd leave the big six at 11%?
Well, that's the distribution agreement I have.
Okay.
So like you were saying earlier, like self-publish, but what I don't do is self-publish. Self-publish, self-publish works for a lot of people and it makes a lot of sense, but if you're a big author, you're selling lots of books, you want to be in bookstores, then still self-publishing doesn't really work. It's not effective. You're not going to get into Barnes & Noble or Costco if you're self-publishing. I figured out sort of a third way. So instead of taking a normal author deal that all big six publishers arrange, I went to, because I had 2 books out already. So for my third, and they sold very well, they're #1 bestsellers and all this stuff. And I went to them and I said, look,
what did you make off those?
I made the same deal you got, same deal every published author got. It's 15% of...
No, but I'm talking dollars. How many books did you sell?
Man. I've sold somewhere over 2 million books total.
So you've made a couple of million, 3 million.
Right, yeah.
A buck a book?
A little bit more. Because some are hardcover.
It's not a bad deal, though, is it?
Listen, it's like I'm doing all right, but
You can't afford long trousers.
Considering, I can afford them. I just don't wear them. Considering
the first guy also is an asshole, and he also shows up to my show in shorts, which I'm very impressed.
It's 80 degrees in San Francisco. I'm not going to wear long pants. It's too warm out. No, considering how much money I've generated for the publishing companies, I don't know, 5.
Well, how much have they made out of? Say, if of 2 million sales, if you've made say 2.5, 3 million yourself, what have they made? 10?
They usually make
profit
2 to 3 times as much per sale as you do, as the author does.
You mean as in profit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
So of 2 million sales, they'll make say 5 million.
Generally speaking, depending on how efficient they are and how well they run their business, etc.
But they did gamble on you.
Yeah, not really. They gambled a little bit, but for my first book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, I already had a website up. It was very successful. It got a bunch of page views. I already had an audience built. I already had all these things that, if I was a totally unknown fiction author and they decided to invest 10 years into developing me and building an audience and running my list and doing all those things that publishers maybe did in the 60s or something, then I think there's a good argument to make about what you're making. But I think in 2012, the reality is, big six publishers don't do any of that stuff anymore. For my first book, and definitely even for my second book was done through Simon & Schuster. They're as big as it gets. And I did pretty much all the marketing. I did pretty much all the press. I hired my own press guy. I ran almost everything. Obviously they did distribution and sales, but that's really all big six publishers are good for now, is for printing the books, putting them in trucks, taking them to warehouses, getting them into Barnes & Noble, collecting money from Barnes & Noble, dealing with returns, and those sorts of things are difficult, if not impossible, for an individual author to do. Everything else you can subcontract out either to freelancers or do yourself. Editing, book layout, cover design, PR marketing, either they don't do that or they're really bad at that now. And so what I did is I went to the big six publishers and I said,
but before we get to your deal, why are they so bad at it? Because I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Well, because I think it's sort of like one of those Clayton Christensen innovator's dilemma problems going on, because for any one book, it doesn't necessarily benefit them to invest a lot of money and to be really good at cover design, because let's say 90% of their books or more, 98% don't sell anything, no matter what they do, right? And so, but it matters maybe in that 2% of books, but they can't predict which books are going to sell, and they can't predict what type of effort they're going to put into it that will make it a seller. So their business has become hit focused. Once you're James Patterson or someone like me, or even someone like you sell a lot of books compared to all the authors that publish, you're in the very, very top tier. And so
say that again, I like to hear it.
Yeah, so they're willing to invest money in you or me because we've already established ourselves as selling authors. And we did that because, you had an audience and a voice before you wrote a book, and same with me. But like, that's the thing. If the value is having an audience and having a platform before you get published, then publishers don't provide any more value. This isn't in the 60s, 70s, 80s when there was very few gatekeepers and there was a lot of gatekeepers to media, and there's a lot of sort of choke points, and it was not easy to get distributed at all. I think publishers played an important sort of selection and curation role. Now, where there's virtually no barriers between consumer and creator, publishers really the only value they provide anymore is distribution. I mean, like, look at my website. Do you know any publisher that runs a website like that for an author? None of them do. I do that on my own. I have my own tech guy, I have my own design team, people, whatever, all freelancers that I hire, whatever. But
TuckerMax.com, by the way. Not that he needs this promotion. He sells enough books.
But I do all that stuff on my own because they.
So okay, so I get your argument. So what's the deal you had? So your first two books, the first one was Kensington, second one was Simon & Schuster. This third one, how have you structured the arrangement?
So I decided I kind of realized.
What's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Hilarity Ensues.
And the paperback's just out.
Paperback comes out this week. And then, so when I was kind of coming up for the deal for this, I thought, I'm tired of doing all the work and making the same money that all authors make. I should be making all of them. Yeah. Right, 7.5% paper, 15 hardcover. I'm like, I should make more. So I kind of looked around and I realized there's only about maybe 8 to 10 book distributors, like people with companies with warehouses and trucks and relationships with B&N and retailers. But there's 1,000 publishing companies. So like someone has to be distributing Harvard University Press because they don't have any trucks, right? And so I realized, all right, there's about 8 to 10 distributors.
So like Ingram.
Ingram is a major. They're sort of a different level of distributor. I was thinking more of like a publishing services company. Simon & Schuster or Perseus is the biggest independent distributor. And so what they do is, if I'm John Q. Publisher, then I go out and I find authors and I do all the stuff, but then I cut a deal with, let's say, Perseus, and then they do all the distribution stuff, right? And so my name is John Q. Publisher is on the spine, and it gets in B&N. You think I'm publishing it, and I am. I'm just not doing any distribution. And I realized, well, why can't I just do that with Perseus or Simon & Schuster? Like, why do I need a publishing company anymore? Because I already have an audience. I already have a website. I already have all my marketing stuff. I have my own. I have my own everything. Sales,
you have your
history.
own publishing company.
Right. I have my own publishing company.
So what was the deal you did? So who did you do it with?
I ended up doing it with Simon & Schuster, and I cut just a straight publishing services agreement with them. So they treat me like, I think they represent a bunch of, they distribute a bunch of university presses and a bunch of other publishing companies. They distribute 20 million books.
So they treat you as a press, essentially.
They treat me as a publishing.
And were they pissed when you came to them with this idea?
No, they were actually very happy because I got a $2 million offer as an advance for my third book from another publishing house. And
Which one? You don't have
I don't know if I...
You can, because no one watches this. Come on. Who was it?
Come on, Andrew. People watch this? Get out of here. It was it was another Big Six publisher, and
Penguin, right?
No, it wasn't actually. But
well, that's Random House.
No. S&S only offered me 1.5, and so they weren't going to offer me $2 million because S&S had published my last book, so they knew I wasn't worth $2 million. But the other house didn't know that, I guess. So they only offered me 1.5, and I came to them like, look, I'm going to go either I'm going to take $2 million from them or I'm going to go to Perseus and do this distribution deal. And they said, all right, well, we're going to lose this guy, but instead we can keep him. We don't have to pay him any money, and he just becomes another distribution client, which is zero risk for them. So instead of paying $1.5 million or matching to keep me, which they wouldn't have done, but whatever, they go from all that risk. And I could turn in a total dud. There are a lot of people who think my third book isn't as good as my first. Right. So
well, all your books are duds, but they sell. Right?
Right, exactly. And so I kind of figured out a way. they loved it because they mitigate their risk, they get guaranteed profit, they keep me on as an author, and they're like, listen, if you know other big authors.
What's the division, the revenue division?
I take 89% of net receipts. Net receipts is basically what the distributor sells to the retailer.
Okay.
So basically half, which means my effective.
And they cover their costs.
No, I pay like.
You pay for.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the publishing company, so now I have to pay for the author, which is me. So obviously it's self-dealing. But then I have to pay for the printing. I have to pay that out of pocket. I have to pay for the distribution costs. I have to pay. So there's upfront money going. Like it's not some fantasy world where everything's perfect. It's a trade-off, you know. And so that's why this wouldn't make sense for someone who is new or didn't have a fan base. But if I basically know what my third book's going to sell within a range, so I can.
How many?
I'm over 100,000 hardcover sold. I don't think I'm at 200,000. I'm somewhere between there. And then the paperback will probably sell 500,000 in the next 3-4 years, give or take. And so I know I can basically cut that check, and I know what my profit's going to be, what my revenue is going to be. And so essentially on hardcover, I go from making about $350 to $380 a book to make under like a normal author agreement, which 15% of whatever, $28. I make about $10 a book now.
So finally, we need to end now because my producer insists that these things are short. But we have a lot to talk about. Maybe we can come back on the show another time. There are entrepreneurs out there, some of them who might be interested in new publishing ventures.
Right.
Are there business opportunities here for new publishers, for entrepreneurs who want to help bury the old publishing industry?
Yeah, there's a lot. I actually, I took this idea, and I was going to build a company around this and take my model and sort of.
I'll come with you. Can you?
Well, I was going to.
What would it take from me?
I don't know how many books. I'd have to look at your sales numbers because below a certain level, it doesn't make economic sense. You have to be selling, I think, 250,000 copies a year or more. But I was going to
about 250,000 a day.
So. Right. Well, then we can definitely talk then if you're selling that. But I was going to go to people like James Patterson and Janet Ivanovich and Paulo Coelho, like the ones who sell crazy numbers of books. And I was going to explain to them, this worked for me. I've already done it. I can either run this for you, or I'll teach you how to do it. You know, I'll pay me as a consultant fee, or I'll just tell you. I don't care. You can have the information. It's not that hard to figure out. And so I was going to do that as a company, and then I realized it's a lot of hard work to start a company. I like drinking and hanging out. I don't really like working that hard.
Being an asset.
Right, exactly. I don't like working hard. So I ended up selling my publishing company to another company, and then they brought me on to sort of work with them and help them build this company, but they kind of do all the work. It's called Lioncrest, whatever. But there's a bunch of opportunities.
And final, in 15 seconds, our friend Tim Ferriss is working with Amazon. That's a third way, isn't it?
Yes, Amazon. Amazon's a fantastic company to work with, I think. The problem is if you're a big author and you go with Amazon, B&N and Costco and those companies, retail companies aren't going to put your book in their stores. Because Amazon, I mean, you know this I'm sure very well, Amazon is a major threat to all brick and mortar retail places. And so that's the trade-off that Tim has to have, is that he gets the muscle of Amazon behind him, but he's going to not sell certain numbers of books because they're not in B&N.
Well, Tucker Max, disappointingly, not quite the asshole I expected, but I'm sure that
there's still time. I can be a dick if you want, Andrew.
Off camera. But thank you so much, and I hope we'll have you back on to talk more about how we can continue to destroy and then rebuild the publishing industry. Thank you so much for appearing on TechCrunch TV.
Definitely. Thank you for having me, man.